Hello, my name is Andrew Crilly, and today I will be providing a tutorial on how to access and interpret records from the 1940 census for genealogical research. From watching this video, you should be able to access digitized copies of census records on your own and search them for information on people living in the United States at the time. Before we begin, it's helpful to have some background information on the United States Census, and this year in particular. Census records from 1940 and earlier are maintained by the National Archives and Records Administration, not by the current Census Bureau. Due to privacy laws created to protect living people, census records may not be released to the public until 72 years after they are created. This is why the 1940 census is the most recent census that is available to the public. It also has the distinction of being the first census to be digitized. Earlier records of previous censuses had been made available on microfilm and were digitized after the success of the 1940 census. If all goes according to schedule, the census taken in 1950 will not be made available until 2022, 72 years after its creation. Although digital copies of the 1940 census are freely available for access on the National Archives website, using them for genealogical research can generally be expedited by going to a genealogical website, such as Ancestry.com or FamilySearch.org. This is because the copy maintained by the National Archives is not searchable by name, but only by location. For the purposes of this video, we will be using the search engine available through Family Search because their services are offered completely for free and there is no risk of doing further research on a person only to run up against a paywall. After clicking Search Records and typing in Census 1940, the collection shows up. In the search engine, enter as much as you know about the subject. At the very least, it's helpful to begin with the full name and year of birth. As an example, I will be using one of my maternal great-grandmothers. I've entered her maiden name, Ida Orcel, and her place and year of birth, Italy in 1905, into the relevant search boxes. However, you can see that when I do this, 0 results come back. Although standard practice for genealogical research is to begin a search using a woman's maiden name, it may sometimes be necessary to check her married name as well. In this case, if we change the search box for the last name to that of Ida's husband, Carlino, we can see that the result comes back. Clicking this result will first give us a summary of the indexed information, which can be attached to a family tree if we are using Family Search to keep track of such things. But it's important to click on the magnifying glass icon, which you can see here, so that we can see the actual digitized page. One thing to be aware of when looking at the 1940 census in particular is that certain people recorded on the page had supplementary questions asked about them, which were recorded down at the bottom of the page. Indeed, in this instance, Ida's son Louis was selected to have additional information about him recorded. You can see his entry here. Once you have found the individual you are researching, it's easy to download a copy of the page by clicking here on this icon. Without going into too much personal detail about my own family and Ida's life, here are some things you can and you should use the 1940 census to learn. Look for information about their address, whether they owned or rented their property, where they resided in 1935, the demographics of the individual, such as race, sex, and age, how much education they had received, whether they were employed, and what their current occupation was. In addition, the informant for the household was marked on the census with an X next to their name. You can see here that Ida was the informant for her family, which can be helpful when judging the accuracy of these records. For further information on the census, www.census.gov has a wealth of information that can provide context for census results. Of particular help is their collection of the exact instructions that enumerators received when they were asked to conduct their interviews. This can be used to decipher elements of the census that were recorded as code in order to save space, such as the number codes used to indicate how much schooling a person had received. Lastly, always be sure to connect with local librarians and genealogical societies, particularly from the area your individual hailed from, as their knowledge of local history can be invaluable in providing more context for these records. Thank you for your time, and I hope that you have a fruitful search.